It is Talking Reds, Neil Atkinson with Rob Gutmann for a recorded edition, and it starts off, Rob, with the sad news that David Johnson has passed away. He was born on the 23rd of October 1951. The key thing about Johnson, from our point of view, obviously talking about Liverpool, is he's integral to 2 league winning seasons and a European Cup winning season.
Yeah.
78-79, 79-80, and then 80-81 when Liverpool win the European Cup at the end of that run. He scores a hell of a lot of goals for Liverpool in those seasons, plays alongside Kenny Dalglish, is really important to that team.
Yeah, it's very sad to hear of his passing. He was a formative part of my early Liverpool supporting childhood, and he was a bit of a late bloomer, I think, in my memory of him, because in that last season you cited, he turns 30, so he's probably 28, 29 in his Liverpool pomp.
Yeah.
You know, he comes from being a squad player, and that's in an era where there was one substitute, so being a squad player was not something to be. Although I think Liverpool have paid a fair bit of money from him, I'm going to say Ipswich.
That was right.
In the mid-70s, sort of just post Shankly, and he struggled to really nail down a place. And then when he did nail down a place, he had to send properly, I would say, by the 79-80 season, he was arguably Liverpool's player of that season. A top scorer, certainly, and scored goals that clinched the title. And he was flying. And he obviously played into the 80-81 season, the European Cup winning season. But the year after that, a lad called Ian Rush came along and sort of ended David Johnson's Liverpool career. I'm not going to say prematurely because he wasn't that young, but to an extent, I think he probably had another good couple of years to give Liverpool. But regardless of that summary and my interaction with David Johnson when I was young, it's sad, and he remains a Liverpool legend. I actually got his autograph when I was an 11, 12-year-old. Yeah, I've long since lost it. He was the only. I remember the players used to train at Melbourne and get a coach back to Anfield for their showers. And you used to be able, the youngsters like I was, and you used to be able to wait in the car park by the main stand.
I've done it.
Have you done it? Yeah. And if you're lucky, you could get autographs when they got off the bus. And they were in a hurry, and they obviously did it every day. But he stopped and had a little talk, and I'll never forget that. So. Rest in peace, David Johnson.
Indeed, absolutely. We'll do the next phase of this where we are reflecting on news. It's just broken. We'll get on to the Glazers / FSG thing in a minute. It's just broken that Guardiola has signed a new deal at Manchester City, a 2-year extension. Takes him to 2025. I'm both surprised and not surprised. And the reason why I'm surprised is I expected him to do this. I just thought this might go longer into the season, and he might make a decision quite late, dependent on how City's season was going, what he thought of the side, the European ambitions. That's what I'm surprised by. I'm not surprised that he's done it, because I just don't understand right now where else you'd manage if you want to be top of the game, if you want to feel like you're doing what you're doing. I think if you're Guardiola, you want to be where Jurgen Klopp is, and if you're Jurgen Klopp, you want to be where Guardiola is.
Yes, it's amazing, the parallels really, and how their careers are panning out and how they see themselves intertwined, whether they admit it or not. I did exclaim with swear words when this news was announced, but as you said, why was I surprised? I think I was in a sort of denial. A bit like that episode of Seinfeld where George doesn't want to get dumped by his girlfriend, so he just stops taking her calls. I'd stopped taking Guardiola calls. I think I've muted him on Twitter, for example. So I hoped he'd never sign the contract. But it does feel like maybe he was waiting to see what Jurgen was going to do. I think actually the main thing is they're similar personalities in as much as they clearly love the game, but there's also a voice in their head saying there's something more to life than this, you know.
Yes.
And yet they always find out that maybe there isn't. And, and that this is the best it gets, and they should embrace it. And I think that happens to them periodically, and they go, I'm signing a sodding contract. That's what's happened here. So we go again. We
do go again. I think it's, very much that team is built in his image. I felt that maybe the Haaland and Phillips signings were not quite as in his image as had been in the past. You struggle to sort of see, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, and it may well be that Phillips goes to centre-back, but I sort of struggle to see exactly how Rodri and Phillips exist in the same team, as an example, and they paid a lot of money for Phillips in the context of that. And Haaland feels like such a break for a man who's been effectively obsessed with attacking midfielders. And yet, he has him, he's used him, he's banged a hell of a lot of goals in. I I don't feel City are quite as imperious. I mean, we're off the last result as a home defeat to Brentford.
Yeah.
That isn't to say not dissimilar to ourselves, but from a higher starting position this season, they can't get back to imperious this campaign. I expect them to be pretty close to it the other side of the World Cup, but they don't feel quite as Guardiola City as they have done in the past.
I think they're quietly in a kind of transition like we are. Neither coach or supporter base wanted to say this is going to be a transition season for either, but we both made bold moves. I think we both freaked each other out last season. City ran away from us, which would have made up to the end of January, say of last season, which would have made Klopp and Lijnders and the gang go, we need to rethink a bit how we play, how we set up. We can't do our standard 4-3-3 forever. There's got to be some new moves. So they've been thinking about that as early as then. We then plough back at Guardiola's lead and would have had him scratching his head by the end of the season going, we can't have to fight them off getting 90-odd points every season or whatever it is, and them going further than us in European Cups. That can't be every season. We need some new moves. So I think both camps sat down thinking there need to be new moves in the summer. And it's ended up with fairly tall centre-forwards being the communality of it. But yeah, as I said, I wonder just what state of flux City are in. Are they going to be an imperious City this season, or are they going to be a slightly confused version of themselves? And I don't think the script is yet written.
Nor do I. But earlier this season, before the Brighton game, that long ago, I can barely conceive of time before the Brighton game. I was fortunate enough to sit down with Pep Lijnders to talk about his excellent book Intensity, which you should get hold of. Here is that conversation, or some of it more accurately.
So we need to be spot on. We need to find a player who's ready, who not many people know about, and then go and then make him like that's us. Does that feel? Does that take more responsibility on the training pitch? Yes. Does that take? Yeah, but that's us. Why everybody expects? We compete in our way. We do it in our way, and that's why when we win, it feels 10 times better. And when players come to us, they know if they win one prize with us, it means 5 prizes of the others. Win one with Liverpool. That's a feeling. And that's why and that's why I hate, if you make a cup smaller, a cup smaller, you become a loser. If you don't take the League Cup, you become a small person. Because a final is a final. And only players will know. Only people who play finals and 50,000 or 25,000 are red and 25,000 are blue. And then you tell me it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And our trophy cabinet, no people matter if there's 8 or 9. Yes, it matters. A community shield matters. Why? Because that final will make you win the next one.
Thank you very much to Pep. Do get the book. It will make a great Christmas present for all Liverpoolians that you know, including yourself. It's very important you buy yourself a present at Christmas. Do you concur with that view?
Yes, all year round, in fact.
Well, you concur with that view all year round.
Buying things for yourself is not just for Christmas.
It's not just for Christmas. No, that's the spirit. Speaking of which, you can buy limited edition T-shirts from the Anfield Wrap. This one about Jurgen and this one about Thiago Alcantara. These are limited edition, as I say. The quality of them is absolutely marvellous, and there's only 200 of them that will be sold of each of the new designs that we've got in stock. There's some hats as well on the way, I believe, but the T-shirts are available right now. So do you get yourself a copy? Not a copy. Get yourself a T-shirt. You don't get a copy of a T-shirt. You just get a T-shirt. But you get a copy of a book. That's unlike. Why? There's still books and there's still T-shirts. Anyway, it's not like they've gone the photocopier with the book and then handed you the paper with it all stapled. Where was I? I was about to talk to you about the idea that the Glazers are now making public the idea they are interested in offers for Manchester United. They're making public part of all of this, I think, is really important.
Have they given a statement out yet?
They put a little statement out, yes.
I
last
saw the
night.
briefings
Yes,
first.
they put a statement out last night saying that, not dissimilar to the Fenway Sports Group statement of, hey, we're open to everything, is the sort of tone of it. Timelines are sort of important in this, I think, both understanding decision-making timelines and then to the world that is shadowed from us of high finance timeline and now the world timeline, and they're 3 quite different timelines, and they are, for me, had the Glazers settled on this before Fenway Sports Group, had Fenway settled on this before the Glazers, had the two settled at the same time. We know they've spoken to each other in the past because they worked together on Project Big Picture. the knock-on effect of this in terms of does it impact one another negatively? Is it in fact easier therefore for them to be able to gauge where market's at? Is it bad news for the Premier League that you've got your two Premier brands simultaneously seemingly on the market? It's a complicated one, this. It is actually one for a big show, for a big discussion, because I do think that there are ramifications all over the place, and it's too early to say whether or not they're positive or negative.
Well, we've started a discussion on several shows in terms of FSG, and I think the parallels are inescapable. There's the conflict for both parties of seeing. Well, I think both parties will have always had their eye to a sale at some point in their tenureship. It wasn't going to be something forever for them. They're business people. The conflict is that the Chelsea sale has been a bit of a signifier that there's decent money out there for the very elite clubs. So we all know that their values, their book values have gone through the roof, and likes of 4s and 5s and 6 millions are talked about for these clubs. But there's a difference between that being talked about and it being realisable. There was a suggestion with the Chelsea deal was a quick distress deal, that actually those values might be realisable. So there's that opportunity presenting itself. There are buyers in the market, the Chelsea deal also showed, with the conflict that the world doesn't look like it's going into a good place economically. So they both boardrooms, the light bulb was switched on at the same time. It goes, this might now just be the right moment to be getting a buyer. The fact that we've jumped first and they've jumped very quickly second is fascinating.
Publicly.
Privately,
they might have jumped first for as far as we know as we sit there.
Yeah. It's fascinating that it's almost like the United have gone, whoa. You know, if there are 4 or 5 good buyers out there, we definitely want to be in the conversation for the best price, because, you know, somebody's going to pay the best price out of those, and we want to be there. I don't think FSG will be delighted by the news this morning that this is happening. It just complicates matters that little bit more. Fascinating if we weren't involved. Personally, I don't like, we're going to do a transfer show later. We're going to talk about who Liverpool might buy. Personally, I find it all too frustrating, Liverpool living in this state of flux, and I think United fans may feel the same way. Although from their point of view, they've lived in a world of anything but the Glazers, and they will see this is a real landmark step in the right direction. We're slightly more nervous, I think.
They'll see it as a landmark step in the right direction because they'll have the view that almost anything is better than this. I think there's also, where I think there's the possibility that they're in two slightly different markets, is there is a lot of talk that Fenway ultimately are a conversation about legacy. That is in there and present. I don't quite see how the same can just conceivably, logically apply to the Glazers. No,
because there's no legacy there.
Exactly, and their ownership will be viewed as downright negative no matter what. So the idea that whoever comes in will be under more scrutiny than the average purchase is sort of true, but the offset of that greater amount of scrutiny is they'll be able to say, yes, but we're not them. The idea that the Glazers themselves have certain markets they don't want to go and trade with because they feel as though they will be viewed negatively by Manchester United supporters. Well, they're viewed negatively by Manchester United supporters anyway. For me, it may well be that the two institutions end up talking to a different type of buyer.
Absolutely. The Glazers pitches need some sport washing. Fill your boots. Ours is a very, very different. So arguably that just gives them a broader market from which to sell to, and ours is narrower. I don't know where that leaves us or leaves their support. I think their supporters are going to find themselves scratching their heads if the Glazers are quite as ruthless as I think they might well be over this. As you suggested, they'll have to decide where their ethical red lines are, I suppose, and that's going to be an interesting one. But I'm not going to prejudge this because we don't know who Liverpool are going to sell to yet.
I know, and that's that is still the flux part of all of this, is that we forget sometimes, not least because when I said to you that Pep Guardiola signed a new contract, you exclaimed. We forget, I think, and have forgotten to an extent, and it's been forgotten about us in the past, the size and the significance of the sporting institutions that are Liverpool and Manchester United. Yeah. That there's a global resonance to them that very much does ring out, both Liverpool and Manchester United, in a way that is only also true, I would argue, right now of Barcelona, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. That's it, in a global footballing sense. They're the ones, you hear the names and you go, oh, right. Now, there's a journey where, for instance, AC Milan could be back part of that conversation, but they haven't been at that table for so long. Yeah. It's very, very difficult to put them in play. For me, the reason why this has huge Premier League significance is there's basically 3 reasons why people tune in to watch Premier League football. It's a big game at the bottom, it's a big game at the top, or Liverpool or Manchester United are playing.
Yeah.
And that's a global phenomenon as well as being a local one. And to have the owners of both of those at once say, we may not want to be part of this anymore, I think will have the Premier League wondering precisely where they currently find themselves in this moment.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think the next 6 months are really, really important in the life of these two clubs in terms of their appeal to investors and to the value their owners can get for them. If you go back to the summer, I think there's clear blue water between Liverpool and Manchester United in their appeal. Manchester United, you go back to the summer, are a project that needed heavy investment in.
Yep.
Even beyond one transfer window's worth of heavy investment. Much talk of expenditure needed on a crumbling ground and infrastructure.
Well, that's why I think United are interested in that. You can therefore see a pathway to buy United, invest in it, and markedly appreciate its value. The Liverpool one's a little bit tougher, but for me, the key part of this is, from the Premier League's point of view, is I don't feel so. Both the Glazers and Fenway Sports Group are part of Project Big Picture.
Yeah.
They're both part of the European Super League attempt in there as well. And they're both, you can view a lot of that as a reaction to the sports wash and financially doped clubs that are in the Premier League / in European football, full stop.
Yeah.
And that they're trying to find protections around that. Whilst, let's be clear about this, they're not trying to save the game, they're trying to maximise their investments. Let's be absolutely crystal clear about that. But why I think this is interesting is that ultimately, I think whoever it is they're selling to, I think it may well be that Fenway and the Glazers are in a position where they just don't really, they can't be bothered with that fight, the next phase of that fight around media rights, around what competition is or isn't, around any one of a number of things.
Yeah.
I think there's every chance whoever comes in from a Premier League point of view, firstly, as I say, it may cause panic full stop in the Premier League to think, hang on, how would both of these reach this conclusion at once? Are we getting something wrong? But also, I think what would concern me in a Premier League sense is whoever comes in will have stomach for that fight. It'll be their first go round.
Yeah.
And I think that's your marker point in a lot of ways here. And maybe, just maybe, if the Premier League had gone firmer on FFP and things like it, they would not find themselves in this position right now.
Yes, absolutely. They've just ushered another petro-state through the door in the guise of the ownership of Newcastle. Who's to say out between Liverpool and United sales another one doesn't come into the mix, and another of the great British institutions is bought by somebody who's not exactly ideal. And you're absolutely right, the Premier League would be disingenuous to end up scratching their heads and wondering how this did happen, because it was obvious that it would happen. I project forward 20 years and think perhaps the thing to bring competition truly back to the sport is all the top 30 clubs in the world are owned by states, and maybe in a way it'll all just be one big washing mess, and a kind of egality might come out of it, but it's a weird dystopian utopia. Well,
it's remarkably bleak from government. What you could just have instead of some statutory regulation backed by the British government. The Premier League have turned their nose up at that so far. It might be something worth them reconsidering one more time, both in terms of protecting fans through ownership crises such as these on the one hand, but also protecting the competition on the other. They haven't bothered to do that. To be fair, Liverpool haven't spoken out in favour of it. To be fair, Manchester United most definitely haven't spoken out in favour of it. To be fair, the whole situation is that practically everyone involved is a bit of a gobshite. That's talking Reds. Gutmann, gobshite. Atkinson, gobshite. See you later on.